Fax salesman, rejected by every investor, now worth $1.2 billion. What if I told you that a 27-year-old woman who sold fax machines door to door for 7 years just became the youngest female billionaire in history by solving a problem that every man on earth completely ignored? What if I told you that she started with $5,000 in savings, got rejected by every single investor she approached for 2 straight years, and built her empire by literally cutting up her pantyhose with kitchen scissors? And what if I told you that male investors laughed her out of boardrooms, calling her idea the dumbest thing they had ever heard, while she was secretly building something that would eventually be worth more than most Fortune 500 companies? This is not a story about luck or being in the right place at the right time. This is the true story of Sara Blakely, and how she turned the most embarrassing problem that half the population faces into a billion-dollar solution that revolutionized an entire industry. But here is what makes Sara's story different from every other entrepreneurial success story. She did not succeed despite being completely inexperienced in business, fashion, or manufacturing. She succeeded because she understood her customers better than any expert or consultant could, because she was willing to solve her own problems, and because she refused to let rejection stop her from pursuing what she knew was a brilliant idea. By the end of this story, you will understand exactly how someone with no business background, no industry connections, and no startup capital built one of the most successful companies in fashion history. You will learn why the problems that seem obvious to you might be invisible to everyone else, and you will discover how persistence in the face of universal rejection can lead to wealth beyond imagination. But most importantly, you will see how the most successful businesses often come from solving everyday problems that everyone else considers too small, too personal, or too embarrassing to address. Let me take you back to where it all began, in Clearwater, Florida, where a young woman who hated her sales job was about to discover that her biggest frustration would become her greatest opportunity. Sara Blakely's path to becoming a billionaire began in the most unlikely place imaginable, selling fax machines door to door in Florida in the 1990s. At 27 years old, Sara was not where she had imagined she would be in life. She had graduated from Florida State University with dreams of becoming a lawyer, but failed the LSAT twice. She had tried to become a stand-up comedian, but discovered she was better at encouraging other people than making them laugh. So she ended up selling fax machines for Danka, an office equipment company, making cold calls and knocking on doors trying to convince small businesses to buy technology they often did not understand or want. It was not glamorous work. Sara spent her days being rejected by potential customers, dealing with difficult bosses, and earning a modest salary that barely covered her expenses. Most of her college friends had moved on to more prestigious careers in law, medicine, or finance, but Sara learned something during those 7 years of door-to-door sales that would later be worth billions. She learned how to identify problems that people have but do not talk about, and how to present solutions in ways that make people immediately understand the value. The specific problem that would change Sara's life forever had nothing to do with fax machines. It had to do with something far more personal and embarrassing: the visible panty lines that appeared under white pants when women wore traditional pantyhose, In the late 1990s, professional women faced an impossible choice when wearing light-colored clothing. They could wear pantyhose, which provided a smooth silhouette but created visible lines under tight clothing, or they could go without pantyhose, which eliminated the lines but left their legs looking unpolished and unprofessional. Sara, like millions of other women, had struggled with this problem for years. She would spend extra time in the morning trying to find undergarments that would not show under her work clothes. She would constantly adjust her clothing throughout the day to minimize visible lines. She would feel self-conscious during important meetings or presentations. But unlike most people who simply accept frustrating problems as unchangeable facts of life, Sara began thinking about solutions. The breakthrough came when Sara was getting ready for a party in 1998. She had bought a new pair of white pants that looked amazing, but every undergarment she tried created visible lines or bumps that ruined the smooth silhouette. In desperation, Sara took a pair of pantyhose and cut off the feet, creating a garment that provided the smoothing benefits of pantyhose without the visible seam lines around the toes. The results were immediately obvious. The white pants looked perfect, smooth, professional, and flattering without any visible lines or bumps. Sara felt confident and comfortable in a way she had never experienced before. But here is what separates entrepreneurs from everyone else. Instead of just being happy that she had solved her own problem, Sara immediately realized that millions of other women faced the same frustration and would pay money for a solution. That night at the party, Sara found herself studying other women's clothing, noticing visible panty lines and bumps that could be eliminated with her simple innovation. She began asking female friends about their experiences with undergarments and discovered that virtually every woman had struggled with the same issues but had never found a satisfactory solution. Sara realized she had stumbled onto a massive market opportunity that had been completely ignored by the fashion and undergarment industries, which were dominated by men who did not understand or prioritize the problems that women faced with existing products. So Sara made a decision that seemed crazy to everyone who knew her. She decided to start a company that would manufacture and sell footless pantyhose to women around the world. The first step was research. Sara spent months learning everything she could about the hosiery industry, manufacturing processes, and retail distribution channels. She read trade publications, attended industry conferences, and contacted manufacturers to understand how pantyhose were made and sold. What she discovered was both encouraging and terrifying. The hosiery industry was massive, billions of dollars in annual sales, but it was also completely controlled by a few large companies that had not introduced significant innovations in decades. More importantly, Sara learned that these companies were run almost exclusively by men who designed products based on tradition and manufacturing efficiency, rather than actual user experience and satisfaction. This gave Sara confidence that there was room for a new company that prioritized solving real problems for female customers over maintaining existing manufacturing processes or distribution relationships. But confidence was not enough. Sara needed money to develop prototypes, find manufacturers, and launch her product. With only $5,000 in savings from her fax machine sales job, she would need to find investors who shared her vision for revolutionizing the undergarment industry. This is where Sara's story gets really interesting, and where most people would have given up. For 2 straight years, Sara pitched her idea to every investor, banker, and potential business partner she could find. She created detailed business plans, market research reports, and financial projections showing how footless pantyhose could capture significant market share from existing hosiery companies. The response was universally negative. Male investors could not understand why women would want footless pantyhose. They questioned whether there was really a market for such a specialized product. They suggested that Sara focus on improving existing products rather than creating something entirely new. Female investors were more sympathetic to the problem Sara was trying to solve, but they worried that the hosiery industry was too competitive and established for a new company to succeed, especially one founded by someone with no experience in fashion or manufacturing. The rejections were not just professional, they were personal. Investors would roll their eyes when Sara described the problem of visible panty lines. They would interrupt her presentations to suggest that she pursue more serious business opportunities. Some even suggested that she was wasting everyone's time with such a trivial concern. But Sara had learned something crucial during her years of door-to-door sales. Rejection is just information, not a verdict. Every no simply meant she had not yet found the right person or presented her idea in the right way. Instead of being discouraged by rejection, Sara used it as motivation to improve her pitch, refine her business plan, and search for manufacturing partners who could help her create prototypes without requiring significant upfront investment. The breakthrough came when Sara decided to bypass traditional investors entirely and focus on proving that customers would actually buy her product. Using her $5,000 in savings, Sara convinced a hosiery manufacturer in North Carolina to produce a small batch of footless pantyhose based on her specifications. The manufacturer was skeptical, but agreed to work with her because the order was small and the risk was minimal. Sara then faced the next challenge, getting her product into stores. Major department stores and retail chains required extensive paperwork, insurance, and minimum order quantities that were far beyond what Sara could afford. So she started small. Sara personally visited boutiques, specialty stores, and independent retailers throughout Atlanta, explaining her product and asking if they would try selling it to their customers. The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Female store owners and managers immediately understood the value proposition. They had experienced the same problems themselves and knew their customers would appreciate a solution. Within weeks of getting her first products into stores, Sara began receiving phone calls from retailers asking for more inventory. Customers were not just buying footless pantyhose. They were buying multiple pairs and recommending them to friends. More importantly, customers were willing to pay premium prices for a product that solved their problems effectively. While traditional pantyhose sold for $5 to $10, Sara's footless version could command $15 to $20 because of the superior results it provided. This early success gave Sara the evidence she needed to approach larger retailers and investors. Instead of asking people to believe in her theoretical business plan, she could show them actual sales data, customer testimonials, and repeat purchase rates that proved demand for her product. In 2000, just 2 years after cutting up her first pair of pantyhose, Sara managed to get her product into Neiman Marcus, one of the most prestigious department stores in the country. The Neiman Marcus launch was a pivotal moment for Sara's company, which she had named Spanx. It provided credibility, exposure to affluent customers, and proof that her product could succeed in competitive retail environments. But Sara was not content to just sell footless pantyhose. She realized that her real innovation was not the specific product, but the approach, identifying problems that women faced with existing undergarments and creating solutions that prioritized comfort, appearance, and confidence over manufacturing convenience or traditional designs. Over the next several years, Sara expanded Spanx to include a full range of shapewear products, bodysuits that smoothed the torso, shorts that eliminated thigh chafing, bras that provided support without visible straps, and dozens of other products that addressed specific concerns that women had with traditional undergarments. Each new product followed the same development process. Sara would identify a problem she experienced personally, create a prototype solution, test it with friends and customers, and then work with manufacturers to produce a version that could be sold at retail. This customer-focused approach was revolutionary in the fashion industry, where most companies designed products based on manufacturing capabilities or fashion trends rather than actual user needs and preferences. The results were extraordinary. Spanx sales grew from thousands of dollars in the first year to millions of dollars within 5 years. The company expanded from specialty boutiques to major department stores to its own retail locations and e-commerce platform. But the real validation of Sara's vision came in 2012 when Oprah Winfrey featured Spanx on her television show as one of her favorite things. The Oprah endorsement created a surge in demand that overwhelmed Spanx's manufacturing and distribution capabilities. The company sold more products in the month after the Oprah show than it had sold in the previous year. More importantly, the Oprah endorsement introduced Spanx to customers who had never heard of the company, but immediately understood the value of its products. Sales exploded, not just temporarily, but permanently, as new customers became loyal repeat purchasers. By 2012, Spanx was generating over $250 million in annual revenue and was sold in over 50 countries around the world. Sara had built a global empire by solving problems that most people considered too personal or trivial to address professionally. But Sara's success was not just measured in financial terms. She had fundamentally changed how women thought about undergarments and how the fashion industry approached product development. Before Spanx, shapewear was seen as something that older women wore to hide figure flaws. Sara repositioned shapewear as something that confident women of all ages used to look and feel their best in any outfit. More importantly, Sara had proven that there were enormous business opportunities in addressing problems that affected women but were ignored by male-dominated industries. The ultimate validation of Sara's vision came in 2012 when Forbes magazine declared her the youngest female billionaire in history, with an estimated net worth of $1 billion. Sara had achieved this milestone without taking any outside investment, maintaining complete ownership and control of her company, while building it into one of the most valuable fashion brands in the world. But Sara's impact extended far beyond her personal wealth. She had inspired an entire generation of female entrepreneurs to pursue business opportunities that addressed specifically female concerns and perspectives. She had demonstrated that massive companies could be built by solving everyday problems rather than pursuing cutting-edge technology or revolutionary innovations. Most importantly, she had proven that persistence in the face of universal rejection could lead to success beyond anything that conventional wisdom would suggest was possible. Today, Spanx continues to grow and innovate, expanding into new product categories and international markets, while maintaining its focus on solving real problems for real customers. Sara has used her wealth and influence to support other female entrepreneurs through mentorship programs, investment funds, and educational initiatives designed to help women overcome the barriers she faced when starting her company. She has become one of the most recognizable and respected businesswomen in the world, regularly speaking at conferences, appearing on television, and sharing her story with aspiring entrepreneurs who face similar challenges and rejections. But perhaps most remarkably, Sara has maintained the same customer-focused approach that made Spanx successful in the first place. She continues to personally test new products, listen to customer feedback, and identify new problems that Spanx could solve. This commitment to understanding and serving customers better than anyone else in the industry has allowed Spanx to maintain its leadership position, even as larger companies have tried to copy its products and approach. The company that started with $5,000 and kitchen scissors now generates hundreds of millions in annual revenue and employs thousands of people around the world. And it all began with a woman who was frustrated enough with visible panty lines to cut up her pantyhose and creative enough to recognize that her personal problem represented a billion-dollar business opportunity. So what can we learn from Sara Blakely's incredible journey from fax machine salesperson to billionaire entrepreneur? First, the most valuable business opportunities often come from solving problems you experience personally. Sara succeeded because she was both customer and creator, giving her insights that no amount of market research could provide. Second, rejection from experts and investors does not mean your idea is wrong. It might mean you understand something they do not. Sara's idea was rejected for 2 years by people who did not experience the problem she was solving. Third, starting small and proving demand with real customers is more valuable than raising large amounts of money from investors. Sara built credibility through sales, not through fundraising. Fourth, persistence and creativity can overcome lack of experience and connections. Sara had no background in fashion or manufacturing, but she learned what she needed to know and found ways to work with people who had the skills she lacked. Finally, focusing on serving customers better than anyone else in your industry can create sustainable competitive advantages that are difficult for larger companies to replicate. Today, when fashion executives discuss the future of undergarments, when female entrepreneurs seek inspiration for their own ventures, and when investors look for opportunities in consumer products, they study the approach that Sara Blakely pioneered. And it all started with a woman who refused to accept that visible panty lines were just something women had to live with, and who was willing to spend years proving that a better solution was possible. Your next breakthrough might be hiding in your daily frustrations and inconveniences. The question is, are you paying attention to problems that everyone else considers too small or too personal to solve professionally?